այսօրվա խոսողը դիգին Gloria
Kenarig.
Kenarig Tango. Kandi որ չէի գիտեր իր միդալները մտքիցա, շատ խոշ ստեգավ հայկական ավոր անուն։ Gloria-ն օդար չէ մեծի համար, կեր եկեղեցին գահաճախի շատ անգամ երագիները, իր զավակներով Ալեքսանդրային և Այդրամին հետ, և իր ծնող կնալ արդեն ամեն երագիներ գայել Chahinianները ջոչ երկասվյա, ուրախ են բոլորնա հոսեն, վստահաբար գիրեին registered nurse և BSN, և շատ սպարդգին մաներ, թե մայրի, թե գինե, թե նրսե, թե արույշ ինչեր գնե, չեմ գիտեր, կուզեի, որ իր մասի թանեմ մկրե ինձի դա, որ ես գայերոն թեզի փոխանց է, բայց կերևի ժամանակ ունեցա, ես աչի կրցա տեսնել, սո իրենսի, որ թուն քիչիկ մտ կաղապարդու, որ ինչ է թուն բաշտոնըտ կամ ինչ կրեմ, սո հիմա դու հրավիրեմ, ոնց ինքը բադի կրեմ, գրամ է, thank you, որ ընդունեցիր։
Շատ մերսի։ Ավելի զորավոր անգլերեն կխոսիմ, սոաս վիդի պասադեմ անգլերենով, բայց քիչ մը հայերեն ագխարնեմ, որ հավադակ, որ հայերեն կխոսիմ։ Որ կիտնանք։ So, անունս Gloria, Chahinian, Tango, ամուսինիս անունը Tango է։ Եվ ես Huntington nurse manager եմ, so առաջ nurse սորվեցա, և then administration, I went into administration, so 16 տարի հոն գաշխատիմ, nursing, և հիվանդներուն չեմ նայր այլևս nurse-երուն գնայում, so I do all the hiring, firing, counseling, and I also, I run a $4 million budget every year. So I'm in nurse administrator, we run our budgets, we're more in charge actually of doing more of the daily operations and the business part of it, but we deal with the nurses, we hire and fire nurses, and we do all the counseling, we take care of the nurses that take care of the patients, so. Mega gab var անգլերեն չխոսի հետ? Good. So everybody knows English. Good. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Montreal, Canada. I was about 13 when I came here. Learned French as a child and was fluent, of course, in Armenian. Առաջ հայերեն խոսեցա, վերջ անգլերեն սովետացանք։ Ներես և դեդես շատ զուտ հայերեն, դեդես կչղանանար, երբ որ դունենեինք և հայերեն չենք խոսել, վսել հայերեն խոսեցեք։ Which, you know, ամեն դարիները անցան և դհա հայերեն գիշեմ գոր, so լավ է, որ դը բոլոր օրը անգլերեն կխոսենք, right? So դժվար է փայրերը կարգաներ, but նորեն հոն է ամեն ինչ կհասկնամ։ So we moved here to Pasadena when I was about 12, 13 years old and went to high school here, was educated here and got my bachelor's in nursing. My goal is to get an MBA now. Sometimes it's hard to go back to school when you have children and a family, but of course if you want to do it, you have to strive for it, and you know, with God's help, I believe it will happen someday. So let's start into our talk. Actually, there's a paper in front of you, and it has some questions on it. So I want this to be interactive. So I want people to start thinking about health and wellness. I'm going to talk about health and wellness. Then I'm going to end it off. I'm going to go through 12 tips for healthier eating. And then I'm going to end it off with how you live a good Christian life, because no matter what we do, however well we take care of ourselves and we eat right and we exercise and we get enough rest and all those good things, we believe in an omnipotent God that really is going to care for us in the end and do everything in His will. So we have to always remember that. We could do all the right things in life, but still we believe that there is a powerful God that watches over us every day. So I'll end it off with that. So if you get the paper in front of you, the top of it is quiz yourself about cholesterol. So I'm just going to go through, there's just 5 questions, and then I'll go through and I'll talk about things that come along with the questions. So the first question is, the lower my cholesterol, the lower my risk for heart disease. And you could just think about it or say it out loud. Do you think that's a true or false statement? True. So of course, the correct answer is true. Your risk for heart disease is lower when you have a low total cholesterol and a low LDL. So LDL, people get confused about this sometimes. LDL is low density lipoprotein, and that is the good or bad cholesterol?
Bad.
Bad. Wow, everybody knew that. That's good. I'm surprised. So LDL, what is it?
It says at the bottom.
You're right. So LDL cholesterol is the fatty substance that is most related to things that block your arteries, and that's what we don't want, especially as we get older. Some people tend to get more inactive, but of course it's very important that you stay active all the years of your life, of course. But that's the sluggish. It's the lower, it moves slower, and it's sluggish, and it tends to clog your arteries. So that is the bad one. And on the bottom of your paper, I just put some reference ranges for you. You don't have to memorize these, but the LDL, the bad cholesterol, should be 100 to 129 is good. 130 to 159 is borderline high. So you don't want the bad cholesterol to be higher than that, 130 to 159. Since we're doing this, I'll just talk about HDL. The high density lipoprotein, the HDL, is the good one. So that's what carries the fat out of your arteries, and it also carries all the fat out of your bloodstream. So you want a higher number for your HDL. The higher, the better. And above 40 for men is good, and above 50 for women is good for the HDL. Women have a protective estrogen that usually protects them a little bit more from cardiac disease. As they get older, the estrogen levels go down, so it's even more important for women as they get older to have all the foods that are good to raise those, to raise the HDL, and we'll talk about that in a little bit when I talk about the healthy foods. So the second question, if a product's package reads low cholesterol, the product is low in fat and safe to eat. Do you think that's true or false?
False.
Good. Somebody up here is saying all the right answers. A lot of foods that they mark as low cholesterol contain oils that may be high in saturated fats, which aren't good. And those are substances that research suggests may be bad for you as cholesterol. Even products containing unsaturated fats, like vegetable oil, can be loaded with fat. Unsaturated fats, your body converts them into saturated fat when you keep eating too much of them. So anything, the basic principle is moderation. So even if you eat too much, what you think are the good fats, the unsaturated fats, your body will eventually convert them into fats. So always having moderation is definitely a good thing to remember with your foods as well as everything else. So also on the bottom of your sheet tells you how many calories you get from fats and how many calories you get from proteins and carbohydrates. So when you have 1 gram of fat, there's 9 calories in every gram of fat. So you're getting a lot more calories just by eating fats alone. Versus carbohydrates and proteins have 4 calories in every gram. So of course it's better to eat more proteins, lean proteins, and carbohydrates limit them, but they have less calories per gram than your fats do. Your fats are always going to have 9. And the percentage of your fat in your diet should be less than 20%. So some people overdose on the fast food. You know, one McDonald's burger can be up more than 1,000 calories. French fries, of course, all of those things that we know are bad for us, donuts, you know, all the bad stuff, fried foods. You can still do them, but you have to do it in moderation, of course, the basic principle of moderation. So the third question, the best age to have my cholesterol checked is age 50 because that's the peak age for heart attacks in men.
False.
Is that true or false?
False.
Right, false. So if you have a first degree relative who's had a history of a heart attack, which is like a parent or a sibling, you should have your cholesterol level checked for the first time at age 20. So they're really recommending now, if you hear a lot in the news and in the media about prevention, there's so much more awareness about prevention and taking care of yourself to prevent things from happening. And that's why they want people to get checked much earlier than previously. Some experts even believe you should have your cholesterol checked every 5 years after that, so just to stay on top of it. It's important to have your cholesterol checked when you're young, since the process of clogging the arteries is a gradual one and may take actually many years. Heart attacks in people who are age 50 may be the result of all the plaques that begin to form on the inside of your arteries when you are actual teenagers, they say. So those bad eating habits that develop very young really kind of carry with you through your entire lifetime. So very important to eat well. That's why they really push with kids now too in schools, how even though the school lunches don't really reflect it, unfortunately. They're supposed to, but it's so important for kids to learn proper nutrition when they're young. So the fourth question on your page is, cholesterol is the only risk factor for heart disease that I should worry about.
False.
Of course, that one is false too. So there are other important risk factors that predispose you to heart attack. However, these are risk factors that you can change. And what do you think one of the biggest actual risk factor for heart attack is? Who can guess that one? I heard it. Smoking. Somebody said it. Cigarette smoking. And cigarette smoking, of course, is something you have total control over. That's something you can just stop doing. Some of the other stuff that you've inherited, your genetics, that kind of thing, you don't have as much control over as smoking. But smoking, your diet, the amount that you exercise, your sleep, your rest, all of that stuff are things you have control over. So that's why the focus now is to focus a lot more on those things. The probability of heart attack, heart disease doubles in men who smoke, no matter what their cholesterol levels are. That's a pretty big number, that it doubles no matter what their cholesterol is. Another recently recognized heart disease factor is physical inactivity. People who are physically inactive are far more likely to develop heart disease than people who exercise regularly. And the American Heart Association recommends about 2 hours and 30 minutes of strenuous activity and just a brisk walk. You know, you can't overdo it if you can't handle it. 2 hours to 2 hours and 30 minutes a week. So if you do about 20-30 minutes a day, and brisk walk is good because you want to raise your heart rate, of course, and that's what really gets your metabolism going and increases the pumping ability of your heart. So the last question is number 5. Because both my parents died from coronary disease while they were young, I suppose there's no sense in trying to prevent myself from developing heart disease. Is that a true or false statement? Of course that is false also. So there are other important risk factors. Again, cigarette smoking is the best example of something you have control over. And we talked about that the probability that heart disease doubles in men who smoke no matter what their cholesterol levels are. So just a summary, there are other important risk factors that predispose you to a heart attack. However, these are risk factors you can change, and smoking is the best example. All right. So now let's talk. I'm going to ask you just a few questions that are kind of fun, not related to the cholesterol thing, but just some fun things that are related to health and wellness. Some of them are funny, so get you laughing a little bit. How long does it take you to digest gum? 2 hours, 2 days, 4 days, or never? Because it's never digested, you eliminate it.
Never.
Never, good. I'm glad most people do that. People often think that gum gets stuck on your insides and it doesn't come out and all this stuff. You always tell your kids not to swallow gum, but the gum actually does come out. So. Let's see. What is the healthiest starch on a Chinese takeout menu? A lot of people like to eat Chinese, but I thought this was a fun question. Do you think it's white rice, brown rice, or steamed rice?
Brown.
Good, brown rice. Brown whole grain rices and brown rices are always the healthiest because actually when you get white rice or steamed rice, they're always processing the rice and refining it, and they're stripping it, that outer layer where all the bran and the fiber is. So you always want to stick with the brown rice. True or false? It is dangerous to drink while taking antibiotics. You hear this one, people ask this question a lot. I'm not saying like, go drink a bottle of vodka, but do you think that's a true or false statement?
True.
False. False. Within moderation, actually, alcohol does not really interfere with most of the antibiotics out there. You could have like a glass of wine with it. People are always like, oh my gosh, you can't drink, you're taking antibiotics. You can actually have like a glass. It doesn't really interfere with the mechanism of the antibiotics.
Okay.
So it's actually a myth. This is an interesting one because I think people think about snacking a lot and late night snacking.
That's my mother.
Repeated late night snacking makes you fat.
No.
Is that true or false?
True. False. That's not false. True.
Yeah, there's a good one. It depends what you're snacking on and how much you're snacking at 2 in the morning. Overall, we'll talk about it. Overall, it's not a true statement. Because if you get up at night and you have a snack and you have a banana, you're fine. or you have something, you know, something, whatever to drink. Mujaddada. Yeah, if you get up and have a small bowl of mujaddada, you're fine. With a little burnt onion on it, you'll be good. Right, but if you get up and you have 2 bowls of ice cream, that's totally different. So basically, calories in, calories out. When you balance your meals, you balance it with your lifestyle. So if you remember the guy that was the swimmer during the Olympics, Michael Phelps?
Yes.
Remember he was like a really good swimmer? He would burn so many calories that he had to have 2,000 extra calories a day. So it depends. What you burn and what you take in should be about equal. So if you're very active and you take in more calories, you're not going to gain more weight. But if you're eating, if you're consuming more calories than you're burning, that's when you're going to put the pounds on. So if you cut 500 calories a day, 500 calories a day, you will actually lose 1 pound a week.
Ooh.
And that's really not that much. If you have like 1 soda or 2 sodas a day, which I don't think most people do, some, but I don't think majority, you can think that the soda has at least 150 calories in a can. Cutting 2 cans of soda is already 300 calories. So if you cut 500 calories a day, you lose 1 pound a week. And that's really not that hard to do if you start reading the backs of everything. Not that you have to be a slave to reading the back of everything you're going to eat, but it actually gives you a good idea if you really want to lose weight to write down and start seeing how many calories and how many fat grams and everything are in what you're eating. Because normally if you don't look at it, you really have no idea. So it's always a good idea to kind of look at that. Last one, funny question. Eating bananas is a great way to stay slim. Is that true or false? False?
True.
It's true. It's actually true. Bananas are low in fat. 1 banana, an average size banana, has half a gram of fat and is 95 calories. It is a perfect snack. And it's full of potassium. It's easy to eat. You don't have to wash it. You peel it, grab it on your way out the door. So it is a great way of staying slim because it's an easy food to grab too when you walk out the door. And there you go. You've only had barely 100 calories. So I know people that have like 1 or 2 bananas a day. It actually does work. It's an easy one to grab on the way out. Yes, it does. It's filling. It has some fiber in it too. So that's also that part's real good too.
You went for Chiquita?
Chiquita, yeah. You can have whatever kind of banana you want.
Chiquita is the best.
You can have 2 Chiquitas and have like, you know, less than 200 calories. So, okay, now we're going to do 12 tips for healthier eating.
Yeah.
So how many of you, I don't want to go into the whole food pyramid, but we used to teach the food pyramid,
Yeah.
where you start with breads and cereals, and you have to have 4 fruits and vegetables, and you have to have 4 whole grains, but nobody can remember that. So actually the FDA has totally redone that, and now they do build a plate. So this is a very easy way to remember if you're eating right every night. So when you build your plate, so the first tip for healthier eating is build a better plate. You think about your round plate. Half of your plate should be
Veggies.
good. Fruits and vegetables. Half your plate is fruits and veggies. 1/4 of it should be whole grain. Should be whole grains, and the other should be healthy protein. So healthy proteins, you can have red meat, but the red meat should be the size of the palm of your hand. So of course, if you're a big guy or something, the palm of your hand is going to be bigger.
2 of those.
You're going to need a bigger portion. Yeah. So red meat has a lot of saturated fat in it, so you want to limit that, of course. It's protein, but you want to stick with the leaner proteins for the proteins that you have. So for the build a better plate, you want, again, half of it to be fruits and veggies, 1/4 whole grains, and 1/4 healthy protein. Refined grains like white bread, pastas, and rice have less fiber and fewer nutrients than whole grains, such as whole wheat bread and brown rice. So healthy proteins are fish, poultry, beans, nuts, but not red meat or processed meat. So generally, of course, and I think our Middle Eastern diet is actually a very healthy diet. We don't do, I don't think, huge portions of meat overall, and not too many fast food eaters, canned foods, refined foods, because they have a lot of preservatives, of course, and nitrates in it that have actually been known to be carcinogens over long periods of time. So the more whole grains, fresh fruits that you can have, the healthier